You ever watched Adult Swim as a kid? Do you have any faint memories of some surreal network bumper from a particularly rebellious late night when you decided to venture into uncharted TV waters after everyone had gone to sleep? Maybe you saw something you weren't supposed to that scarred you for life, or something that straight up confused you. Or, if you're like me, something that may have elicited both of those reactions as well as inspiration, intrigue, and utter awe. That's what Video Trevor's work feels like to me. It's got that static haziness of childhood memories mixed with some really weird and experimental imagery you might find on Adult Swim after 12 a.m. in the 2010s. It seems like it takes inspiration from that, specifically from things like Super Jail or Jack Stauber's work, the latter of whom has actually commented on a couple of Video Trevor's uploads. I found the Video Trevor channel in a similar way to these seeming inspirations. It was one late night a few years ago in the recommendations of, I believe, the PUCHI and Pansy web series, which I just finished watching for the first time. I clicked on one of the videos, having unfortunately known the meaning of the term GURO from unrestricted DeviantArt, and I was met with something not necessarily as shocking as I had expected, but definitely much more disturbing. I felt profound nostalgic dread upon watching this series that had amazed me like none other in quite a while. I thought at first that it might have been part of an ARG or something, but I found no evidence of that, and so I began to revere and enjoy it as the incredibly creepy and disturbing piece of art that it is. If any of this sounds relatable or interesting to you, I encourage you to go over to Video Trevor's channel and watch his videos for yourself. Most of the works are very short, only a couple minutes in length each, making it very easy watching for those without time for a large commitment. I just wanted to make a little video highlighting these works, however, to give them the praise and possible recognition that they deserve, as I haven't really seen anyone else cover these before and I'm tired of just keeping the playlist saved on my YouTube account. Come with me and peer into the short, creepy, and amazing PUCHI GURO. But first, with this being a work of horror art, there's of course some content warnings I have to address first. This artwork deals with themes of and artistic depictions of mutilation, animal death, childbirth horror, murder, severe gore, decomposition, blood, body horror, and surrealist horror. It also has flashing lights and very bright colors throughout. If there's any of that you don't want to see, click off the video. No one will blame you. This artwork is mostly drawn and pixelized, so the depictions are somewhat crude, but it is still very recognizable and disturbing, so I'd beware. And one more thing before I start the video, I thought I'd look into the odd name of this thing. The second term in the title, GURO, is one you may be familiar with if you were an art kid with unrestricted internet access back in the DeviantArt days like me. GURO itself is a subgenre of manga and anime that revolves around explicit gore and mutilation. The term you may or may not be more familiar with is eroguro, which is just like GURO but erotic. I don't believe any of the material on Video Trevor's channel is erotic in nature at all, but if GURO sounded familiar to you as it did to me, or if you already knew of eroguro, know that this is the only gore part and not erotica by any means. As for the first part, PUCHI, it is most likely in reference to the Japanese term, which means little, mini, or petite. PUCHI is also a term used in Spanish slang to mean shit, but given the kanji at the bottom of each video, I assume that it's alluding to the Japanese definition. By the way, I am going to attempt to translate these kanji the best I can. I'm not an expert, but they seem pretty straightforward, usually simply reflecting the title of each video. Oh, and for those who don't know, kanji is a Japanese writing system composed of Chinese characters. Okay, with the context out of the way, let's dive into the first video. The first video in the lineup is 29 seconds long and is titled PUCHI GURO 01 Tree. It depicts a pixel art gif of, shockingly, a tree, with a dismembered human face dripping blood down onto hot pink grass and a yellow-clouded sky in the background, as well as a border of a pink to beige gradient and a box containing the repeated kanji for tree. The short animation loop also seems to have a slight VHS-like moving gradient over top of it, and glitches fairly frequently. At the end of the video, the title of the series is shown in both English and Japanese in colorful lights. The description of this video, as well as the rest of the PUCHI series, reads, PUCHI is a short educational series made with Mario Paint. With 526 views as of recording, this video is certainly obscure and disturbing, aka right up my alley. I think that it is rather believable that this was made in the 1992 game made for the Super Nintendo, Mario Paint, but it seems like the kanji, background, and drop shadows were made in other software. As for the series being educational, I mean, unless it means educating me on what a bird skeleton looks like, I think that that does not apply here whatsoever. Personally, it seems to me that that part of the description was added to call inspirations from the old edutainment games made for consoles like the Super Nintendo. Although I don't completely see that correlation here, that's just my best guess as to the creator's intentions. Plus, the Super Nintendo was before my time as a grimy Gen Z kid, so I wouldn't know. Either way, this is just the first of many creepy videos in the series, so let's get into a little more realistic and an arguably more intense one. Content warning for animal death and decay starts here. PUCHI 02, Bird, shows us a decomposing blue bird with maggots writhing in its flesh on a pink checkered background, with the kanji for bird displayed repeatedly underneath. Same description, same length, same outro. This starts to give us the childhood theming harder than before. It's a top-down view, and it's framed in such a way that it seems like it's only a snapshot of what could be a larger memory. It kinda seems like something a kid would accidentally stumble upon and marvel at with morbid curiosity for a short while. And with the pink grass of the previous video, it seems like the bird may be laying in the grass. By looking at the blood coming from the bird's foot area and apparent lack of visible feet, it seems like the bird might have been attacked by some animal that, for some reason, didn't eat it, or maybe shot out of the air by a hunter. The lack of scavenging done on the animal before reaching the skeleton stage of decomposition, save for the maggots, kind of paints the world of PUCHI into a somewhat savage one, as if killing is only done for the sport and not for survival. 03, Child, is the most abstract one so far, both in visuals and subject matter. This video displays the top half of a child with solid red eyes at the top of a slide, and the bottom half of the child having been severed and slid down to the bottom of the slide, now spreading blood from exposed arteries. In the background there are 4 balloons, and the clouds are covered in this spotted cow-like pattern, while the sky is a purplish pink. The kanji below this is, of course, child. This scene is very surreal, seeming almost nonsensical upon first glance. The child's face is expressionless, and to be honest, it's kinda hard to make anything meaningful out of this video, besides the continued childhood theming. 04, Dog, is the most gory so far, and introduces us to a dog with a bloody, gasping human head, which has seemingly sprouted and overtaken the dog's original face and head, which is lying severed on the ground nearby. There is more of that cow-like pattern, as well as a black and white checkered pattern and a rainbow checkered pattern for the trees in the background. The environment seems to have completely done away with feigning normalcy for this one, as the sky is purple and the grass is blue, almost as if a child had colored it in. I hope this poor dog thing is put out of its misery. 05, Flower, is a suspicious top-down scene of a decomposing, naked, dead body in a shoddy dirt grave and a shovel to the side, which has presumably dug it out. The corpse also has some ribbon or maybe rope throughout it. There is a blue flower rapidly sprouting from the corpse's mouth. It really feels like up until this point, all of the rest of the videos have been from a child perspective. From a nightmare with a tree, an accidental stumbling onto a dead bird, a horrifying tragedy on a playground, something horribly supernatural going on with that dog, but this one seems like it's from the perspective of a murderer, so it kind of goes off the beaten path. Also, a flower requires time to grow, so it would be weird that it would be sprouting from an open grave that seemed to have just very recently been dug out, seeing as the shovel is still there. This could also possibly just be how a child perspective would understand something like this. A child might not understand that a flower requires time to grow. although this interpretation is a bit far-fetched. 06 Mother is probably the creepiest out of all of them to me. It is a much longer gif of a bony, pulsating, bloody fetus breaking out from a naked mother with hollow eyes, long, slender arms and hands, a wrinkly neck, and gravity-defying black hair under the moon. This one is really disgusting, but maybe how a child would understand birth or a C-section. I know I was grossed out about birth as a child, and while I didn't picture anything this horrifying, I could see how a more disturbed child might. 07 House is the most visually complicated image yet, bringing a different spin on Broken Home by showing us a house that's bleeding out of its windows and down its steps. This one is pretty straightforward, and it looks like something a deeply ill and/or abused child would draw in therapy. For a few moments at the end, however, just before the end card plays, there is a large black humanoid creature that appears and cradles the house for only a few frames. Who or what this could be is unknown, but the bloody foaming mouth that it possesses alludes to a sinister nature nonetheless. 08 Moon displays a moon with an eye that has a purple iris scanning the earth, being watched in return by a bald child bleeding from their eyes and mouth. Interestingly, the light cast in the room by the moon is illuminated with a heart pattern, but given the random introduction of other patterns in previous episodes, I'm not sure this means much. 09 Ocean is an ocean of blood with a severed human head, an eyeball, and a hand washed up on shore. There are also these little green things lining the beach, but I'm not sure exactly what they are. My best guess is plants of some kind. To me, it seems like, if we're still rolling with the child perspective interpretation, a possible manifestation of a fear of the ocean. 10 Father is definitely the heavy hitter. It may display the origin of all this nightmarish imagery. Father shows us an incarcerated man breathing heavily behind the glass between him and his visitor, of which we share perspective. He has a bloody hand upon the glass, as well as blood splattered on his face and orange suit, and there is a decapitated policeman in the background. If this were to be a theory video, this would be the missing piece that makes it all make sense. If our pseudo-point-of-view character associates the word father with a serial killer, who knows what they could have seen as a child. While I don't really think PUCHI GURO has a point-of-view character, I do think the series tells somewhat of a story. A story of a world viewed through a horrifying lens by a terrified psyche. Overall, these videos give a sense of childlike horror and introduce what the world may look like through the eyes of a very disturbed or possibly abused child. It takes the fun and imaginative drawings you might usually see in Mario Paint or Kid Pix or PictoChat and completely turns them on their head. And although that isn't a new concept, I can't help but feel an extreme sense of dread and horror watching this even today. Ultimately, I don't think there's anything more to PUCHI GURO than a series of creepy gifs meant to disturb those scouring the corners of the internet for obscure art, but I don't think it has to be either. I think sometimes something can just be scary to be scary, and this sure is. I experience the sort of wonder and shock of viewing something that I'm not supposed to, that I haven't felt since those late nights on Adult Swim when I was a small child. And it was exciting. Although Video Trevor hasn't uploaded in 5 years, I'll stay subscribed just in case. 'Cause I'm a big fan of whatever the hell this is. I can't find this creator on any other platforms, unfortunately, but again, I heavily recommend going and looking through their channel, as the other stuff they've made is extremely cool and pretty similar to this vibe. I hope this has possibly generated some more interest in this artwork, as it definitely deserves it, and if not, I hope I showed you some cool new art you can enjoy, and maybe take inspiration from in your own art. I've been Prismo. Thank you for watching, and happy birthday.